Tour Junkies.
What is going on, golf addicts? Welcome to a brand new show this year that we're doing for the 2025 Masters. This is the Masters DFS Flashback and Lessons Learned show. We're flashing back into time. We're going to dig deep into 2024's Masters, look a little bit at 2023's Masters, and remember what all we learned when it comes to making a good DFS lineup, what it took to take down the Millionaire Maker contest over there on DraftKings, and a whole lot more, including, we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts. If you're new to DFS, if you've done some DFS and you kind of laid out for a little bit, now you're back in it, we're going to get into some reminders, some good, gentle reminders for you before you start really digging in and getting into the player pool that's already up and loaded on DraftKings. So it's going to be a good show. My boy Pat Perry in the co-pilot seat with me, ready to rock and roll. It is Masters time, baby. We're recording this on the Friday of the Valero, but Masters is basically here now.
Yes, and I cannot wait, DB. Only a few more sleeps, and then we are at Masters Week. I am disappointed that you didn't do the Wayne's World, the Wayne and Garth kind of. I mean, you could have, that.
I do.
Yeah.
Swing. Remember when if you have a golfer you like, you go swing.
Yeah, absolutely. You should have done that. But
Michelle Pfeiffer in Gangster's Paradise, or no, Dangerous Minds.
Swing.
Yeah. What a great skit that was. Good movies too. All right, let's get into this. By the way, we're gonna drop our DraftKings DFS show on either Sunday night or it'll come out Monday morning. So stay tuned, as well as the betting show. All that stuff will be out Sunday night or Monday morning. But we wanted to get this one out a little bit early, just to kind of, again, whet your appetite, get you in the mindset of some DFS for the majors, the first major of the year, and getting you back in the groove, getting you back in the swing of things. So that's what this is about, but be on the lookout for those other shows. It's going to be awesome. Let's first talk about what's on offer right now on DraftKings for DFS. You got 3 Millionaire Maker contests, Pat. I'll briefly mention these, but then I want to get into like our favorite contests to get in outside of the Milly Maker if you have one or two that you want to share. But a lot of contests are already locked and loaded here on DraftKings on Friday afternoon. So back in the day, there used to be 1 Millionaire Maker contest when we first started in 2015. Mm-hmm. It was $20. And now they got 3 of them. And there's a $10, which you can get in, $4 million prize pool, $1 million to first. There's a $100, $2.5 million prize pool, $1 million to first. And then for all you deep pockets, there's a $3,333 entry, $4 million prize pool, and $1 million to first as well. I assure you those will. Well, I can't assure you, but I'm pretty sure those things are going to fill. So, be ready. Be ready to get locked and loaded into those. Go ahead and reserve your place. This might be a do or a don't that we come to later, but I feel like it's appropriate now. Don't forget that if you reserve lineups now or over the weekend, that you got to go back and mess with them, right? Don't get hammered on Wednesday night and forget. And then your dummy lineup that you entered on Saturday is in all of your entries. I know that sounds basic, but it's happened to the best of us over the 10 years. So don't do that. Personally, I like to, and this is living dangerous. I don't like to load a lineup in. I just don't. I like to leave it blank, and then that way I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing. I don't like to do that, DB. I like to you know me, though, I have weird tendencies too. So I don't do a lot of those dummy lineup things anyway. But I will say there are a ton of good contests this week, and I'm excited for all of them.
All right, golf addicts, we partnered with our friends at DraftKings, and the battle for the jacket is heating up in Augusta. And there's no better place to sweat the action than DraftKings Daily Fantasy, the ultimate destination for fantasy golf fans. And for the year's first major, DraftKings is giving all customers a shot to play free for a $1 million top prize with your next $10 deposit. It's simple to play. Build your dream lineup while staying under the salary cap, then sit back and watch as your players rack up points. Every birdie, every bogey, every clutch putt, feel the intensity of every shot. Should you roster Rory? You banking on Scotty doing it again? Are there some live guys you like? I don't know. Maybe they need to be in your lineups. We shall see. Download the DraftKings app and use code Junkies to play free for a shot at the $1 million top prize with just a $10 deposit. That's code Junkies for all DraftKings customers. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. Minimum $10 deposit required. One single-use $10 ticket rewarded for Fantasy Golf Millionaire contest that expires on April 10th at 7 a.m. See terms at DraftKings.com/promotions.draftkings.com. See terms at DraftKings.com/promotions.
Now, do you want to hear my favorite ones now? Or
Yeah.
are we going to?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a single entry guy, DB. I love that we have the $33 single entry. We've got the $100 single entry. We've got the $200 single entry. And look, David Barnett. I'm saying your
Yes.
name, your full name, because
Gotcha.
I want you to understand that I'm being serious here.
Okay.
I know that we need to be responsible with our monies. But this
Yes,
is
we
a
do.
week where sometimes I'm irresponsible, and I save up for this week. I save up for Masters Week, and I
Yeah.
get irresponsible, and I may do all of those singles entries, and I may not normally do them, but I feel like I got a better chance to win. I feel like I
Not
have.
recommending that. Not
We're not
recommending your
recommending it.
responsibility.
No, this is just me. I'm saying this is what I do,
Yes.
and
You're
I'm
confessing.
excited. I'm
It's a
confessing to
safe
you.
place.
Yeah, this is a safe
Okay.
place. That's what I do, and so I'm probably gonna do it, David, and I'll love myself later, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, DFS has changed a lot over the 10 years that we've been doing it. And I mean, you and I started the show because you and I were playing DraftKings DFS in 2015 for golf when it first came out because we loved golf. We loved fantasy football. We've been doing fantasy football for a long time. And DraftKings was the first place to come along and do something for golf. And
Mhm.
and that's how we started. We became friends literally over DraftKings DFS golf. Water cooler talk at the office, and running little small contests with our buddies on DraftKings every week for $5 or $10. And over that time, a lot's changed. A lot more people are in the space. There's a lot more content around it. There's more sites like Bet the Number. There's data sites that can help you put together a model. ShotLink era has changed things as well. I mean, can you imagine like when we started this? I don't think the ShotLink era was full blown. Didn't that start in 2016? Like that's
Yeah, it
crazy.
wasn't.
Um, so a lot has changed. There's so much data. There's companies that make lineup optimizers, and there's people paying for people who are expert DFS players, not us, by the way, to give them picks and teach them how to do this. And like it's gotten very difficult at times, and that's why contest selection matters. So what you do get in the majors is you get a lot of casuals, and especially the Masters. The Masters is the most like casual tournament that people get interested in. Everybody's dads that play DraftKings once a year, that have that have money loaded in for the Masters every year are queued up to play this, and
I
they
mean,
want to
not my
try it.
dad. Not my dad. We
Of
know my
course, because he plays every week.
yeah.
Um, but that is reality, and so I do think knowing your level of play and your ability and what you have at your disposal is important because those single entries and three max entries do a lot to somewhat level the playing field because somebody's not able to buy 150 entries and use some
Mhm.
lineup generator and some optimizer and blah 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 blah. Next thing you know, you're getting smoked. So the three max entries and the single entries are a lot of my favorite contests too. I like the sand save they break out usually during the majors. It's a three max entry, $75 entry. So you can knock that out. And then I always love the $33. And they always load a handful of those. Like right now, there's only two $33 single entries. There's one with a $50,000 total prize pool and one with 150,000. They'll probably load more when those fill, usually. So I'm on the lookout for those too. So anyway, just a couple of our favorite contests to get in. And speaking of contests, obviously, we're talking tournaments here, Pat. We're talking about
Mhm.
what's called GPPs, guaranteed prize pools, or tournaments where it's weighted towards those that those that enter only about the top 20% or so are getting paid roughly. Only the top 1 to 3% are really making some good money on there. If you're in that top 20% and you cash, you're doing okay, but
Mhm.
it's hard, right? And your goal is to try to finish in that top, we always say 1% of lineups. That's very different than say what we would call a cash game, a double up or a 50-50. So if you're new to this and you want to kind of dip your toes in, highly recommend a double up or a 50-50 where essentially just about 50% of the lineups are going to make money and they're all going to make the same amount of money. So if it's $100 entry and you finish in the top 50% or 45 depending on the contest, then you're going to get $100 or $200. So you're going to profit 100. same thing in a double up or whatever. And that's a much different approach in terms of roster construction that you should definitely think about. So, Pat, you've we used to do the cash game thing a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Mhm.
What are like a couple of key differences, I guess, when you're building a cash roster versus a GPP roster, especially for the Masters, for people to keep in mind?
Well, I think, we'll first look at a cash lineup. I mean, typically what you're doing, I mean, in most weeks, obviously you want to get all 6 guys through the cut, right? We want to do that. So, when you get all 6 guys through, you're going to have a much better chance to win, whether it's with a cash lineup or a cash contest versus a GPP. But with a cash contest, at least if you get 6 of 6 through, you've got a really, really good chance of at least doubling your money, which is all you're trying to do. So you tend to play it a little more safe when you're looking at these cash lineups versus what you're doing in a tournament lineup or a GPP. You're going to take a few more risk when it comes to the GPP because you've got to finish in that top 20% or so of the field. So you definitely have to have some differentiation. Whereas when you're looking at those cash lineups, you do want to stay maybe a little more balanced, so along that even average price line, so that you can hopefully have a better chance to get all 6 guys through. And then once you do that, hopefully it's kind of smooth sailing to cashing for the week. But there's a lot more strategy when it comes to the GPPs, as far as how you want to structure your lineup, what risk you want to take. Do you want to fade the chalk? All of these kind of things we talk about when it comes to being able to do well in a GPP versus a cash, which is usually just a little bit more easier and a little less thought into it.
Yeah, and just remember, like you're only really trying to beat, like Pat said, roughly half the entries, and knowing that if you do that, everyone gets paid the same, whether you're in the very first, you're at the top, and you score more points than anybody else in the contest, or you're the person that's right on the bubble that happens to be the last one to cash, you're going to make the same amount of money. So I always tell people, especially for majors, like you get in your cash lineup, you're fired up to play Rory or Scotty or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
you don't have to have those guys. Like ignore some of the big names and like Pat said, like have some balance. Make sure that you've got 5, 6 guys that you feel very strongly about are going to make the cut. Not really the kind of contest you want to take a whole lot of flyers. You can take some flyers, but they need to be solid, and I wouldn't take a lot of them. So
No,
definitely a
exactly.
difference there with the cash lineups. All right, let's talk some do's and don'ts. And then I'm going to listen. We've got some good data for you. We've got some data from our friends at DraftKings on the 2024 Masters that we're going to go over optimal lineups, Milly Maker lineups, best and worst, how the chalk did. It's going to be really good data for us to go back and refresh our memory on how it played out in 2024. I've got a few key talking points on the 2023 Masters and some notes that I made myself last year after the 2024 Masters that I want to read through. So we're going to get into that, but let's get into some do's and don'ts first. I know Pat worked hard on the do's and don'ts, but I might have a couple to add. But Pat, let's hit us with what you got.
All right, I got 10 of these, DV. 10. I've got
Nice. All
5
right.
do's and I've got 5 don'ts. All right, and there's a lot of different directions we could go. But I'll start with number 1. Do always put your cash lineup in a
Oh,
GPP. This is
such a
important.
good starting do. That is
That's
a
the
great starting do.
That's number 1. It's number 1. It's number
Such a
1 for a
good do.
reason, because we have seen it in our over 10 years of doing this. We have seen this happen. People
Yeah.
say to us all the time, "Hey, can you tell how my cash lineup would be doing in the Milly Maker right now?
Oh, oh
I
dear.
think I might be doing pretty well." And then we look it up and we say, "Yeah, you might be winning
$1 million.
$1 million right now, but you didn't put it in
Congrats
there,
on your
so it doesn't."
$50
Yeah,
double.
good job. Way to go. Glad you won your big
Oh,
double up contest, but you didn't put your cash game lineup in a
such a good
GPP. So that's number 1, DB. All right. Number 2, this is a
love it.
don't. This is a don't.
Hot start.
Okay. Do not. Now this is really master specific. This is not just GPP specific.
Mhm.
Do not play the old guys. Okay? Don't get in there. There's a lot of old guys, DB, that get into the masters, right? Now Freddie Couples always kind of makes the cut. VJ Singh may make a cut. Bernard Longer's in there. All these other old guys. I don't know if Larry Mize is still playing, but you don't get suckered into trying to get too cute with the old guys, DB. Okay? That's a big don't. Okay.
I like it. I like it.
Just an
I
okay.
mean, because here's the thing. If you look over the years recently, sure, like one of those guys is going to make the cut, but more than likely they're not going to do much after that. And again, especially if you're playing for GPPs, what are we trying to do? We're trying to finish in the top 1%. That's the goal. We're trying to do that. We're not just trying to min cash in a GPP tournament. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. Next one, DB. All right. Use your resources for ownership projections, wherever that might be. Try to get a resource so that you know ownership projections for GPPs, because that is extremely important. All right. And I would add on to that, use your resources for data as well. Okay. Have a place where you get data. All right. You've got to do that. And that's going to help you build the best lineups. And it's also going to help you get that differentiation that we talk about when you look at the ownership percentages. It's gonna help with, being able to take that low owned guy with a lot of upside that could win you a GPP. So I think that's very important, DB. Okay. That's a do.
I like it. Hmm.
A don't. I like this one a lot because I think people do this a lot. Don't overthink and over optimize, DB. Don't get
Oh,
caught too much in the details that you miss the larger picture, that you're just trying to pick good golfers, DB. That's all we're trying to do is pick good golfers. Now, I just said get into the data, but don't get there and run all these optimizers and all these things and get your head all up in like a spaghetti noodle or something. We want to be
hmm.
able we want to be able to focus on the fact we're just trying to pick good players that are good golfers, that are in good form, and they can do well and they have upside. Okay, DB, you feel good about that one?
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Not
number.
bad. I mean, I'm a little more of a analytics guy than you are, but you've always
Okay,
been a little more
well that's why.
heady.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another do.
Hardy, I guess.
You got to diversify your lineups. All right, DB. Now, uh, some people might be following the market right now, and
Yeah.
if they are following the market, they might, if they weren't diversified, they could probably feel a little uneasy. But sometimes, so you gotta diversify, DB. But when it comes to GPPs, that means you don't want to always just you don't want to put a bunch of the same things. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to get in there. You got to mix it up a little bit, and it's going to increase your upside. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next one. This is a don't. While we want to diversify, don't be afraid to take calculated risk. So I kind of mentioned that earlier, but you got to get in there using your data, take a risk on some guys. All right. Maybe you see somebody that doesn't have the greatest course history and he's not in the best form, but maybe you've looked at some data and you've seen, hey, look, his irons have been pretty good. We know iron play is pretty important at Augusta National. You got to hit these greens
Mhm.
on the right side of the greens. You got to be positioned right. Maybe they're hitting their irons good. Maybe they've been putting really well. Maybe they don't really putt well on any other surface than bent grass greens. That might be getting a little in the weeds a little too much, but I think that you got to be willing to take those risks. All right. Next one, DB. This is a do. Was I on a do last time? I can't remember if I was on a do or a don't.
No, I
Anyway,
think you said don't.
okay, this is a do. Actually, no, this is a don't. This is a do, DB. embrace embrace those risks, okay? So look, you got a stinky, smelly lineup, DB, like a poopy diaper lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to embrace that lineup.
I
You
had
got to
that one
go.
written down. Make some queasy lineups.
Yeah, make a queasy lineup. It's basically
Yeah.
what you got to do. If you got a lineup that you're looking at and you just want to throw up because you're like, this is the worst looking lineup I've ever had,
It's
you
got
got to play
Mackenzie
it.
Hughes in it or
Yeah, it's
something.
got Mackenzie Hughes, somebody like that. You got to play it. You got to play it because it doesn't matter how it looks. You're just trying to win. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my final one. Do not, do not get too wrapped up in the socials, DB, the social medias of the world and the
Mhm.
touts of the world. Now, we consider ourselves touts. I get it. But sometimes it can jumble it up in your mind if you're following too many guys on social media and you're following all of these touts. And here's what I'm really getting at. If everybody has the same sneaky play, that means that play is going to be popular and it's not a sneaky play. So you got to get in there. If you're following all these guys and you're looking at it, and everybody puts out great content. So I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying if you see all the same people talking about the same guys and the same sneaky plays, that might mean you might want to take a little bit of a different approach to it than just going with those guys. Okay, DB?
I like it. Can I add a few?
Yeah.
Um, A lot of this comes back to what we've said already a bunch of times. You're in a tournament GPP lineup. Your goal is to create a lineup that will have leverage players. In other words, players who are lesser owned than a lot of other than
Mhm.
the other entries that you're competing against, and they do well. And so you run up the leaderboard. You're not running all in the same all the same pace because you all have the same players, but you have high leverage players with low ownership that are doing well to finish in the 1%. So a lot of it comes back to that. Let me say this. Do not, this is a don't, early commit or late tinker. There's a sweet spot. If you early commit, I like these guys, this is who I like. But let me tell you something, and these are some do's. Do watch the weather, right?
Oh, yeah. I
Augusta
meant
weather,
I meant to write that. That was a good one. I meant to write that.
Augusta weather changes like that. I'm here. I'm in Augusta right here. It changes like that. I think we're going to have a little bit of a cooler Masters. Could get some wind, usually get some rain. Who knows? What did we see in 2007 when Zach Johnson won? Tough conditions,
Mm.
hit fairways, never go for a par 5 and 2, blah, blah, blah. So weather can dictate, skill sets required that you might need to make an adjustment for. So there's a sweet spot. If you early commit to your player pool and the guys you like now over the weekend or on Monday, you could be screwed if things change. Also, once Tuesday, Wednesday, things start taking shape, ownership numbers and projections start happening, you start understanding what the weather looks like, what the course is playing like, press conferences, blah, blah, blah. Once you kind of get it going and nothing major changes, then don't late tinker. Don't be up late at night, Wednesday night tinkering. Don't wake up Thursday morning tinkering. That always, you 99% of the time doesn't pan out. Don't forget the live guys.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
great one.
There's
That's a good one.
there's always there's gonna be a couple. Brooks, Bryson, Rahm, Cam, Neiman, uh, you know, even some of the old guys. Schwartzel, Louis. I don't know if Louis in it. Schwartzel can pop every now and then. Who knows if DJ is going to show up or not? I don't know. Bubba, the course history old guys. I'm just saying, don't write them off. And typically they get a little less ownership because people don't like live or people aren't paying attention or people don't care. Um, couple more. Don't be afraid to leave some cash on the table. Now, we're going to
Mhm.
look at some winning lineups and some optimal lineups that you're going to see here in a little bit. A lot of cash has been spent in the last couple of years to take down contests. So this might be a little antithetical to that, but in general, a lot of GPPs are won because you're leaving some cash on the table. It makes you feel queasy. Don't be tempted to use all 50,000 of your salary cap for contests. All right, I think that's good. Those are some good do's and don'ts. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like 15 do's and don'ts. We crushed that.
Yeah, I like 'em. Good job, DV. I think you did great with
Yeah, great
those.
stuff.
Mm.
Let's talk about the 2023 Masters just real quick. I don't have a lot of visuals here. I don't have a lot of data, but I didn't want to just look at the 1-year numbers for 2024 that we're going to deep dive in here in a minute. But for 2023, just some numbies to throw at you. The uh, for the winning Milly Maker lineups, there were two Milly Makers, a $15 and a $100. The $15 spent $49,900. The $100 spent all 50K. Completely opposite of what I just said. They spent all of their money. This is another thing to remember with the Masters. We should have talked about this earlier. It's such a small field relative to the other majors.
Mm.
And then 10 or 12 of those, 15 of those guys are also irrelevant because
The
you've
old
got
guys.
old old farts and the amateurs. Now listen, there's some sexy amateurs that every now and then pop. Your boy Neil Shipley, blah blah blah. Very unlikely. And those guys typically don't find their way in winning contest lineups. Um, but as a result of the smaller compressed field, ownership numbers are usually higher than for the PGA or the US Open, like total ownership numbers. A lot of times for those other three majors, your winning lineups total ownerships will be like 50% or 65%. The 2 years or the two Milly Maker lineups in 2023 were at 80% total ownership. They scored 542 and 539 points. So the total ownership was up, right? Which means it's okay to eat a little chalk.
Mhm.
Just don't eat all of it. Don't have all of it in your player pool. But, num on a couple guys,
Yeah, I
right?
agree. Yeah.
Augusta's the most predictable golf course we play on in terms of majors. So if it's that predictable, like chances are like the popular guys are gonna hit. There's gonna be more popular guys hit than they are at when they play at Pinehurst last year or what, you know what I mean? So just understand that. Last thing I want to cover is roster construction. A lot of the winning contests in 2023 only had one player at 10K or higher. They averaged less than one player in the 9K. They averaged one player in the 8K. They averaged 2.6 players in the 7K and 0.67 players in the 6K. So a little spread there, but the 7K gold is definitely there, and you got to mine it, and you got to find the right one. And there ain't as much dipping in the 6K as you think because it's
Yeah.
the smallest percentage. That's 2023. Just some things to remember as we start to now look at the data for 2024. So let's start. Let's talk about the DFS data from our friends at DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports for the 2024 Masters. And let's start with the highest owned. It's the chalk, baby. Here are how the 10 most popular players performed in 2024. Here we go. It led off with your winner, Scotty Scheffler, at 32% roughly, scored 119 points. Now we'll talk about value here in a minute because you can see here in the graphic he was not the best value. But Pat, what do you notice overall outside of Scotty Scheffler and maybe one other player here in this graphic of the 10 most popular plays? The battle for the jacket is heating up in Augusta, and there's no better place to sweat the action than DraftKings Daily Fantasy, the ultimate destination for fantasy golf fans. And for the year's first major, DraftKings is giving all customers a shot to play free for a $1 million top prize with your next $10 deposit on the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app. It's simple to play. Build your dream lineup while staying under the salary cap, then sit back and watch as your players rack up points. Every birdie, every bogey, every clutch putt. Feel the intensity of every shot. Are you going to play Scotty? Are you going to play Rory? What about that guy that's kind of cheap in the 7K or 6K range on DraftKings? What's it going to be? Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app to play free for a shot at the $1 million top prize with just a $10 deposit. That's for all DraftKings customers. Just download the Daily Fantasy app for your free shot today. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply, void where prohibited, and minimum $10 deposit required. One single-use $10 ticket rewarded for Fantasy Golf Millionaire Contest that expires on April 10th at 7 a.m. See terms at DraftKings.com/promotions, sponsored by DraftKings.
Well, other than Scotty and Fleetwood, they all really kind of sucked, DB, from at least from the
Yes.
chalk standpoint, as far as their point totals.
Now, you could look at this and go, well, they probably all made the cut. I think they did. I think most of them did make
Yeah,
the cut. But they just didn't return value hardly at all. I mean, Scotty and Tommy Fleetwood, who was priced at 7,500 and owned around 19%, finished number 7 and number 2 in overall value rank. And the next best finisher of the 10 highest owned players in the slate, the next best finisher was Siwoo Kim, praise God, baby, at 19%, who finished 35th in value rank. So
yeah,
had you faded 8 of the top 10 highest owned players on the slate, except for Scotty and Tommy, you would have been just fine. And honestly, you could make the argument that you didn't have to have Scotty in the lineup, but a
yeah,
lot of people did. So this is just a reminder and a visual that while Augusta is predictable, we get caught up in some of the shininess. I mean, I look at a guy like Sahith Theegala here who was owned at 25%. And I do love Augusta for Sahith, but don't forget, a lot of guys need laps around Augusta before it really starts to click. And I could see a lot of people being infatuated with his year last year coming in
hmm
and he's got the Jordan Spieth-esque game, but he doesn't have a lot of laps around here, and that matters. Now, obviously, Ludwig last year didn't have a lot of laps. He did fine, but he also had a very experienced caddy on the bag in Joe Scavron, who had been around it plenty of times with, I think, Ricky. So, those are things to always consider. But, I mean, this is a major chalk bomb fest here.
yes,
Let's look at
absolutely.
Let's look at the next one. These are the top 10 highest point scorers. So, top 10 DraftKings point scorers and their value rank. But, notice the prices, notice the ownership percentage. So, of the top scorers, you had Colin Morikawa, Nikolai Højgaard, Max Homa, RIP,
hmm
Terrell Hatton, who had already gone to live, by the way,
hmm
and Chris Kirk. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 10 were sub 10% owned. low ownership guys that popped. You had Bryson was in there and Hatton was in there. Your two live players that came up and did something. You had Kirk and Hoygaard in the 6K range. Only Scotty of the top 10 highest point scorers, only Scotty was in the 5-digit range, over 10,000 or above at 12-1.
Yeah, I
Any other
think
observations here?
well, I would say, a couple things. One, both when we go back to the do's and don'ts, you talked about the live guys taking, don't forget the live guys. So you had that with I guess Hatton, and then you had that with and then you look at taking calculated risk. Okay, guys like Hoygaard. A lot of people knew who Hoygaard was and that he was a fantastic player. You took a calculated risk probably if you got him, and it panned out. But really, it panned out with Colin Morikawa. You look at that low ownership percentage on a guy like Morikawa, who is a great fit, great ball striker. If you took that risk on Morikawa, it was definitely going to pay off for you.
Yeah, for sure. Let's look at the worst. These are the worst values. So points scored, worst values, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one, but man, um, I mean, DJ scored 7.5 DraftKings points in 2 days.
Jeez.
He's a former champion. He's
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson. Now, in fairness, Jordan Spieth didn't do too hot either. He was 9,300, scored 18 total points. So I mean, it's not like this is now these are the worst values. Okay, so relative to price, not the dead bottom last, but the worst
Hmm.
values. And there's some studs in here. I mean, Wyndham Clark was 10,000 at the time, coming off of a near win at the Players. Jordan Spieth was 9,300, and he's Spieth. DJ was 8,800. And you had Fred Couples in here. There's your old guy,
There's the old
6,000.
guy.
Everybody's like, give me the bare minimum, Freddie C. All I need is a made cut. What does he do? He sucks. Not too
Yeah.
much to talk about here.
No, there's
You
not.
got
But
anything else to add?
I'm just happy to see Freddie Couples on there, DB.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, this is the best values overall. And you got Nikolai Højgaard really at the top.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of best value, 6,700, and he was fifth in points. I mean, and he was 2% owned. That one was kind of tough to predict. Couldn't have really seen that one coming, other than, Højgaard had somewhat of a pedigree. He wasn't an unknown. He played on the DP World Tour. He done well there. He's had a little bit of pedigree, I guess, behind him. Tommy Ladd ended up being a good one. We already talked about him. You talked about Morikawa. Ludwig obviously did his thing. Scotty, Keegan. I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a ton of takeaways from this slide. You have some 6K value here.
You did.
Camilo, Taylor Moore. Huh?
That's my only takeaway is that sometimes you just got to chalk it up to whatever, what the hell happened. I mean, Camilo being on here just,
Camilo.
I mean, it just is what it is. You probably weren't going into the tournament last year thinking Camilo was going to do much. So you lucked out if you took him.
Well, I mean, so I'm looking at this and now I'm counting 6 of the 10 were in the 6K range. And they're
Hmm.
like, well, DB, you said don't go down this. But none of them were amateurs and none of them were old farts. Like they're all good players. Ben On, great player. Chris Kirk had a win earlier that year, like good player. Keegan, duh. Taylor Moore, winner on tour, right? So just take note of the 6K guys. Let's play some guys with pedigree if we're going to dip down in the 6K.
Absolutely.
All right, let's look at the optimal lineup you could have built in 2024, which DraftKings did tell us no one built it, but they came close, as we'll see in the winning Milly Maker lineups on the last slide, and we'll get out of here. Here is the optimal lineup you could have built last year. You would have spent $49,800, and so you'd have left 200 on the table. Scotty Scheffler would have let it off as the only player above 9,000, which is kind of the range we usually start talking about. The only player above 9,000 at 12-1. Then you had two guys in the 8K that you built using Colin Morikawa and Bryson DeChambeau. There's your live player. Then you went one player in the 7K range, one of the best values on the board, Tommy Fleetwood. And then you went with Chris Kirk, who we just talked about at 6,900, and Højgaard at 67. You would have scored 514 points. And then look at the total ownership average. Basically exactly the same as in 2023 with the winning Milly Maker lineups, right around that 78, 80% total ownership average.
Yeah. And you spent $200 less than max. So,
Yep. kind of starting to see a trend, at least the last 2 years here at Augusta when it comes to making DraftKings lineups. There's a live guy in there. But I mean, Scotty and Tommy were pretty chalky. Even Bryson was, I think, around 12 or 13. People were starting to kind of come around on maybe Bryson figuring Augusta out. He was at like 12.82%. Kirk was at 6.63. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like this lineup isn't eating some chalk. You are.
Yeah, you're
And
eating a
here
little
are,
bit, but not.
yeah.
There's 3 guys in there were very low owned.
Last year, you had 3 Milly Maker contests, the $10, the $100, and the $2,222. Here are your winning Milly Maker lineups. You can see, I mean, look at the $100 single entry. Total ownership is 96%. I mean, ate the chalk with Scotty, Tommy, a little bit with Bryson. Ludwig was 12.8. Bryson was 12.8. I mean, really, Denny McCarthy, who was also, actually, you know what Denny was owned last year?
I could not even guess.
Denny was 13% owned last year.
He was coming in hot though, DB. He was coming in
Came
hot.
in hot. So, I mean, that whole lineup was double-digit ownership except for Chris Kirk, the one that won the $100. Scored 490 points, 96% total ownership. Just put together a real gem there. Again, if you look at all of these lineups, they played one player in the 5-digit range. That was Scotty. All of them had Scotty. And then I guess so 2 of them had Scotty and Ludwig. So those 2 players in the 9K range and above. Ludwig was 9,100. They all had Bryson in them. So there's the live connection. They all had Tommy Ladd because obviously he was such a good value at 7,500. I mean, when you see a guy like Tommy Ladd, as good as he is at that price, he's going to be chalky, but it's like, man, it's such a good value. Like sometimes that's just chalk worth eating. Any other observations here from the winning Milly Maker lineups?
My only observation is I probably would not have been in the $2,222 entry tournament, but yeah, good stuff.
Agree. Good stuff. I thought it was good to look back at that, refresh our memories. We want to thank our friends at DraftKings for spitting out some of that data for us and helping us get that together. Get in there, get those DFS toes wet again for the season's first major. There in the Masters. We got a link in our description if you want to check that out for both current customers and new customers that you've already heard about in the show. So, and then check out the other podcasts we got going. The DFS show is going to drop. The betting show is going to drop on Monday morning, probably. You'll have all that ready for your commute on Monday, hopefully, Lord willing. And then obviously more content coming out from us on throughout the week on different platforms, X, our Discord, SoBet, all that good stuff. So check all that out. Thank you all for the support. Masters Week is big for us. If you can if you can comment, if you can share, if you can subscribe, do all the things. Tell your casual buddies about the show. That always helps us. It's a big week, and we would greatly appreciate it. Anything else, Pat?
No. Great stuff, DB, and I cannot wait for next week.
Let's have a go and may your screens be green. See you.
Out!
Tour Junkies featuring David Barnett is not an affiliate of CWM LLC. Opinions expressed by the host or guests do not reflect those of CWM LLC. CWM LLC does not endorse gambling or the entities promoted by the Tour Junkies podcast. David is a non-registered representative of CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.